The average baby in the United States will consume 600 jars of baby food. So parents who end up using store-bought baby food can spend up to $50 to $100 a month on it. But you just might be smarter than that. Making your own baby food means you can save some serious cash, but it also means you can control exactly what is going into your baby's fragile system. When you're making your own baby food, you want to make sure you're selecting fresh ingredients, organic fruits and vegetables that are free of pesticides and other chemical ingredients. And for your animal products, make sure that they're free of growth hormones or antibiotics. Making your own baby food typically involves 3 steps. Some fruits and vegetables like banana or avocado can be pureed or ground up without cooking them first. For everything else, you will bake, steam, boil, or pressure cook the ingredients. Now here's a little tip. Steaming instead of actually boiling retains the greatest amount of vitamins and minerals. Now you'll generally cook everything for about 10 to 15 minutes on the stovetop until it's soft enough. Then step 2, you will mash or grind to a suitable consistency using something like this baby food mill. Finally, you have to thin it. You'll use liquids such as breast milk, maybe even apple juice, formula, spring water to achieve the desired consistency. Food should be thin for new eaters, almost watery, pasty for seasoned eaters, and chunky for older children. It is best to introduce non-sweet foods first, like cereals or maybe even vegetables, green beans, zucchini, summer squash. But I have to be honest with you, I started both of my children on pears. They seemed like a good food to start with, and they loved them. And honestly, a baby who's coming straight off of breast milk is used to a little bit of a sweet flavor. If you start them on pears or something somewhat sweet, don't worry that they're going to be stuck on sweet foods for their life. Both of my children still love their vegetables to this day. You do, however, want to make sure you're introducing new foods one at a time. Introduce 1 new food per week and watch for signs of allergies. The idea here is if you introduce 5 or 6 new foods all at once and your baby has a reaction, you won't know which one it was. So start with the first food and then another and another, about every 5 to 7 days introducing a new one. Now always make sure you wash fruits and vegetables thoroughly. You're going to peel and dice, de-seed if necessary. For animal products, you'll remove any skins or bones. And for your grains and your beans, you always want to rinse them before cooking. You'll cook your meats thoroughly so no pink at all is showing. Allow your child to accept all fruits and vegetables before you try adding in any meats. Now when you're making your food, you want to make enough to freeze so you have some for now and some for later. It's a great idea to freeze individual portions in ice cube trays just like this. Each cube will be about 1 ounce, so you'll know exactly how much they're eating later on. Once this is filled up, you stick it in the freezer, and once it's frozen, you can pop out the individual cubes, place them in labeled baggies or glass jars, and put them in the freezer. Frozen baby food is good for about 2 months in the freezer. Now when it comes time to serve your food, it's great to serve a portion of cereal alongside some fruit, or maybe even stirred in together, some fruit with some vegetable, so that you're developing that variety in their palate. Now here are 3 basic but great foundational recipes, and I'm hoping that this demonstration will show you just how easy it is to make your own baby food. The first one I want to show you is a basic apple puree, kind of like a glorified applesauce. This is good for babies 6 months and up. It's really good first food for babies. It's high in vitamins A, C, folate, and also the minerals potassium, magnesium, and calcium. Now for your apples, you absolutely have to peel them, take out the core, and then slice them into small chunks. You could use just 1 type of apples, but it's nice to use a variety and maybe even some apples and some pears in there too, especially if you've already tested and made sure your baby is fine with apples. It's a nice way to introduce pears in as well. Once they're chopped up into small pieces, you're just going to put them in a saucepan with a little bit of water and let them steam. This one has already been simmering for about 10 minutes, and you can see it's nice and soft in there. The next step is to put it into the baby food mill. There's some really nice electric baby food grinders out there, but I honestly don't think it's necessary. And when you are a tired parent, the last thing you want to do is clean up too much unnecessary equipment. An old-fashioned basic baby food grinder like this works just as well and is a whole lot easier when it comes to cleanup. You put the top on, you press it down, and you grind. and you can see it starting to come through. And there you have that nice thin consistency that's great for early babies. If you think this might still be a little too thick for your baby, simply thin it out with a little bit of the liquid that you cooked it in. Now, a nice thing that you can do with this, and it's completely optional, is to add a little bit of cinnamon. If you're going to add the cinnamon, I would add it right at the beginning as those apples are steaming so it really gets down in there. Remember though, that cinnamon is a somewhat strong flavor and some babies might not be ready for seasonings like that. So you might want to wait until your baby has had this a few times before you try it with cinnamon. Now, I'm going to serve some of this right away, and the rest I'll put in a dish to serve later on tonight or tomorrow. If I were making a huge batch, I would also be putting it in the ice cube trays to freeze for another day. Just like that, you've made your first baby food. You are no longer a baby food making virgin. You can do anything now. So let's move on to recipe number 2. The second one I like to call vegetable patch. This again is good for babies 6 months and up, but you want to make sure you've done this after you've introduced each of the individual vegetables with the 4, 5, or 7 day wait rule in between. You want to make sure you peel and clean up all the fruits and vegetables. For this particular recipe, we are using carrots, summer squash, green beans, and peas. Now, I didn't want to go through the hassle of opening up all the pea pods, so I just found some organic frozen peas, and that's completely fine. For the carrots, of course, I got some great fresh carrots. Same thing for the summer squash and the green beans. So we chop all these up into small pieces. Same thing for the green beans, just a rough chop. You want to make sure your vegetables are all about the same size so that they'll cook pretty evenly, but you're going to steam this for a good 10 to 15 minutes to make sure it's really soft enough to put it through your baby food grinder. For your summer squash, I've already peeled some. You want to get that peel off of there, and then again, a nice chunky chop, and then your peas. Now you're gonna put all those in the pot and let them steam, which I've already done, and these have been cooking for about 10 minutes. Nice variety of vegetables in there. You can see that it's pretty dry in there. There isn't much of the liquid left. That's because I had the top off, so it evaporated. If you keep the top on while you're cooking it, it will maintain a little bit more of the liquid in the pot, which can sometimes come in handy if you need to thin it out later. Now I'm going to put that in my baby food mill. If you wanted to, you could completely rinse out and clean off the baby food mill in between. I'm not worrying about it for the purposes of showing this to you right now. Also because probably your baby has already been introduced to apple, so it might be a nice flavor to introduce in with these vegetables to sweeten it up a little bit. So it's okay to have a tiny bit of the apple residue still in the baby food mill. This I'm going to scrape into the grinder and then grind it up just like we did the apples. Look at that. You can see all the colors. It's nice. You can see the summer squash coming through. You can definitely see the green from the peas and the green beans, and then you've got a little bit of the red from the carrots. It's that whole eat a rainbow thing that we talk about all the time. Now, once that's all ground up, again, I'll serve a little bit of it right away and put the rest of it in a dish for later on tonight or tomorrow. The final recipe that I'll show you is sort of a peachy chicken. Now this is better for a baby who's been at this solid food business for a few months. You'll start off by boiling 1 chicken breast, and you're going to cook it until it's really cooked through, and then chop it up into really small pieces. If you're making a large batch of this, enough so that you can freeze it, you'll use about 1/3 cup of the chopped chicken and about 1/4 cup of rice. So that chicken, you want to make sure it's, shredded up into really small pieces because you'll be the one grinding it. And then add in some of the rice. A white rice would work fine, but a nice ancient grain red rice or a good brown rice is of course a little bit better. And then some peaches. For the peaches, I definitely peeled them and got rid of the pit in the middle. Now, if you're really wanting to make something like this, but you don't have any cooked brown rice already on hand, you could also use a baby cereal, like a rice cereal, as your grain in this recipe instead. And once again, I'll serve some of this right away and keep the rest for a later day. So the key here is to remember that variety is king, but don't beat yourself up too much over any particular meal. Look at the day as the whole picture and make sure your baby has a good variety of fruits and vegetables and grains and later proteins over the course of the day. To get the grains, you can serve the pureed fruits alongside a nice baby food cereal. Just a simple rice cereal will work, and that's grains for your baby right there. And then very simply, you on your own cooked up some pureed apples and then this nice mix of pureed vegetables. And then once your baby has the hang of that, you add in the grains and the protein also. Trust me, in no time at all, you will have the hang of this.